Hey guys!
Hey, welcome to the library. We're the Movie Codex. I am Brian Wilhelm.
And I'm Mandy Pierce.
Cousins.
Yes, cousins. What's going on?
We are re-enlightening people on the Divergent series.
Yes, one of my favorites actually. I am a huge young adult fan of literature, and so we started our first series with Divergent. I'm very excited about it because the new Insurgent video comes out in 2 weeks, and so Brian and I have decided to kind of give you just a little bit of a spoiler on the upcoming Insurgent movie, but also take you back into the Divergent book as well as what we thought about the movie.
As she says, this movie is a spoiler alert for the movie Divergent. So if you haven't seen it and you want to, turn us off right now, watch Divergent, and then come back to us.
The book is Divergent, and it is the first in the series, or trilogy actually, by Veronica Roth. It is about a young girl, post-apocalyptic America. It takes place in Chicago. It's kind of like the Hunger Games.
It's pretty much almost like the Hunger Games.
The book is about a girl named Beatrice, who, when she turns 16, has to decide...
Stay in her own faction.
In her own faction, or if she's going to choose to be something different. But if she chooses to leave, she cannot go back to her own faction. Of course, what does she do? She chooses to leave, and she chooses to be a Dauntless, which is part of the Brave faction.
Fast forward, that movie came out in teen. It was directed by Neil Berger. Actually, the film, in my opinion, this was the first book-to-movie film that I've actually watched that I actually liked some of the changes they did in the movie over what happened in the book.
Yes.
Neil did actually a good job in the screenwriters, and I think Veronica Roth, actually, I liked how they did it a little bit better. The movie started up-and-coming riser Shailene Woodley and her co-star Theo James,
who plays Four, her love interest. I found it interesting too that Lenny Kravitz's daughter played her best friend.
But, you know, the movie, actually, one of the things I like about good movie, the director actually held true to the book majority of the time.
In fact, Brian and I, when we were seeing the movies, at the end, we sat and looked at each other and said this was probably our favorite movie or book-to-movie adaptation that we have seen thus far.
Actually, we enjoyed the book, and we also enjoyed the movie at the same time. I like how the movie did. They just did the quick intro, and then they just started to the...
Well, it missed all that... I mean, it was important background information, but...
You pretty much missed the fact that she was an awkward teenage girl like all the other books.
Yeah, and it went straight to the... I like the choosing ceremony. It went straight to the choosing ceremony. You kind of got information on her family and how they were, and how her brother and her, the chemistry between her and her brother as well, who happens to be Ansel Elgort, her co-star in The Fault in Our Stars.
Well, anyways, with the choosing ceremony, when I first saw the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually using the same knife? It almost looked like, as a medical professional, I was like, okay, someone's catching some sort of disease. But in the book, they actually use multiple knives. So if you were actually wondering if it was the same knife, nah, just due to time limitations, it looked like the same knife, but it was multiple knives. But I think the choosing ceremony, you know how...
It followed the book.
It followed the book, you know, the heart drop, you know, the parents, you know, when the kids actually fly the nest, you know, most of the parents thought most of their children would stay in their own faction. Her and her brother actually left the different factions, but later on you find out that each of the factions they chose was actually from their old parents, old factions.
Yes, it's true. You find out later on that Tristan Caleb's mom was in fact a Dauntless. Alright, well moving along to, continuing on with Divergent, moving on into how Tris gets into Dauntless and what she does and kind of her choices and why she chooses Dauntless. It kind of leads on to life's choices that she has later on in life as well. And where her mother came from and where her father came from.
But, you know, one of the things that I actually did appreciate in the book was that Dauntless, it was mentioned by Ford that in the movie, Dauntless you think is a bunch of wild teenagers that like the bungee jump, do extreme sports. But it was actually meant, Dauntless was for the brave and the strong to defend the weak and the helpless. Which was something that wasn't mentioned much in... It wasn't
mentioned at all in the first book.
Actually, in the first book, Ford did mention it, like, because he said that's what Dauntless was supposed to be.
So, anyways, back to the parallels of the book and the movie, and what we thought, why we liked it so much.
And you know that scene when after she chose Dauntless and she joined them, you know that actually the scene when you run. About Trish, you know, felt like she was bound. She wasn't herself in abnegation, but this first scene when she starts to run, when she gets on the train, that's just one step for her, and that's actually the life of freedom that she's always wanted.
And what she didn't know she needed. And like you said, the train, when she jumped on the train before she got to the jumping, where she had to jump. Where she was the first to jump, and it really showed a lot of...
That was actually a lot of bravery, because you do something brand new in life, like how we're doing this video, and you have to free fall. You got to take that jump, and it's like you don't know what's on the bottom of the ravine, or actually in this building, but she is actually the first out of everyone there that actually jumps off.
And it was exactly like the book described.
Book described one of the scenes I think you were looking forward to at first. One of her first signs of bravery was she took Al's spot in front of the knife throwing range. And when I read that in the book, that was like the first time I was like intense, and I was like saying, this chick actually has guts.
And that's what you were looking forward to and seeing in the movie.
Yeah, it was.
It was a legit knife scene from the book, and guess what?
They pulled it off.
They pulled it off, and flawless. It was exactly like the book described.
Fight scenes when they actually had to spar in the first phase of their test. In the book, in the movie, they had her going up against Molly first. She was this like behemoth of a woman from Kandor, and then they make her go up against her antagonist Peter later on. But I wish they would have sort of done it how they did in the book.
Peter first.
It was Peter first. That was actually her very first fight, and then later on, she develops. When I was reading in the book, she faces Molly. That's like her final exam in phase 1, and that was. She actually beats the snot out of Molly.
Yeah, and it didn't show that.
It didn't show that. The only part they showed in the movie was the capture the flag scene, which
was amazing.
It was amazing, but that was like that fight scene with Molly should have been how they did it in the book.
Yeah,
that was like you rooted for her. You said this woman actually belongs in Dauntless. She took on the best female fighter.
It's also between Peter and Molly. That's where you see the relationship between Triss and Four starting to develop.
The other scene one of the scenes I was looking forward to was the capture the flag. But what I actually liked how they did it in this movie that was different from the book was in the book, they used paintballs, which I was like, okay. But in the movie, they said they had the technology. They used neuro darts. And to me, I was like, if you want to simulate war and pain, that is the way to go.
It felt just like a bullet, he said.
It felt like a bullet. Triss actually stepped up. She became actually a better strategist than actually some of the erudite people who are the nerds. But that was
that would have been you.
That would have been me, the strategist.
Yeah.
But actually, that was one of the best well-done scenes in the book. And after that, one of the things I loved the most was the when they went down the zip line.
Yeah.
In the book, that was a cool thing. But in the movie, Neil did a great job. And Shailene, is it Shailene? Shailene. I will get your name right one day, I promise. You actually felt like a joyride, and when I was watching the movie,
her adrenaline.
You felt the adrenaline.
The whole thing. I like the whole thing, even from climbing up the what's it called?
Ferris wheel.
Thank you, Ferris wheel. Climbing up the Ferris wheel, where you got to see a glimpse into Four's fearscapes, kind of in his fear of heights and how he deals with it, and then, like you said, the relationship between him and Triss starting to develop there, and. I think it was always there, and I liked that in the storyline is the chemistry. I like the chemistry between Triss and Four. However, can I go on with this one?
Go ahead.
If you're an Ansel Elgort fan and you saw The Fault in Our Stars, you know the chemistry between Gus and Hazel is so much better. And so when I see these movies now with Ansel Elgort as her brother, I'm like, no, it can't be, because all I see is Gus.
But they actually missed, though, I thought, in the book, Four pushed her to her limits. It was one of the things, like, from the day one, he actually pushed her.
He made her a better person.
He made her a better person.
But she made him a better person.
Actually, yeah, and you saw that in the book, and that was one of those things, I was like, granted, I know for time restrictions, you couldn't put that in the movie, but in the book, he actually pushed her. And he didn't allow her to accept second or third rate. He knew she was the strongest and the bravest. And he said,
she had mental bravery, and she had mental strength.
And he said when she was at her best is when she actually was her abnegation side.
I remember that time.
But one of the things that I actually loved about the movie, though, that I think was a little bit short in the book, was when they actually went through the third trial was the fearscape.
Yeah.
Because in the book, the whole time they said you got to hide being a divergent. Well, in the book, she could actually imagine like a weapon appearing or things shattering in front of her, which
made
pretty
her
much
a true divergent.
Which pretty much said she should have just wore a neon shirt that said Divergent. I liked it though in the movie though. Ford trained her how to be dauntless. It's like a divergent would do your way, but a true dauntless would actually think about how would they stop their fears.
So in essence, he was teaching her how to be abnegation as well.
But of course, at the end of that, though, what I appreciated what it had in the book was the final, her fearscape, when she had to hold her family at gunpoint.
They didn't do that.
She actually, in the movie, they made her shoot her family, but to me, in the book, she showed her bravest. When she said, I'm not going to shoot my family, my life instead, spared them, take me. That is true bravery.
And also when she was trying to save 4.
And that was the only thing I think, in the movie that they really fell short. But the whole other things, I think they actually nailed it perfectly.
I do. And we walked out very pleased.
We were.
We were very pleased. And go back
Actually,
and
let's go to the ending.
Okay.
The throwdown with Janine, which never happened in the book, but I am glad.
That's one thing we left saying.
I am glad they left that in the
That's
movie.
what
When she
happened.
threw the knife at her hand, bam! I was like, I'm glad they changed it. They added that. That was a necessary add in the movie, and I actually enjoyed it.
Good job, Neil Berger.
Good job. And good job writing staff. Good job, Veronica, for okaying that. I think that was a perfect ad.
Yeah, great.
And and of course, when they end the movie, it's definitely
ready for the second installment.
And when you start the second one, it actually starts where this one ends. But all in all, the book, out of all the books I've read, it's not one of my top favorites. It's definitely one that I've read it in 3 days, but it wasn't the ones I actually called how to work so I can read it nonstop. But
I have never done that. Just so you know, I have never done that.
But,
never.
To me, it had a slow start, but it did pick up, and it did keep my attention. And the movie portrayed the book, I think, perfectly, with even the things they added and some of the things we were nitpicky on. I think Neo and his team did a great job in that.
I do too. I think they did a great job. And like I said, when we left the movie theater, me and Brian, or Brian and I, were very excited.
Always a teacher.
Always a teacher. We're very excited about how well the book related to the movie.
In fact, I actually
we really appreciate it.
It was very well done production.
I
actually own it in my library as well.
As do I.
My name is Brian.
I'm Andy.
Here at the Movie Codex, giving you a little bit of knowledge.
One click at a time.
And we like to send a special shout out and a thank you to the Tabitha D.
Yay, Tabitha D!
Who is helping us start our YouTube video.
She's also our cousin.
So please, we'll send a link to her site. Support her. She's awesome.
Support us.
Yes, please support us. And we will see you next time.
Bye.